Welcome again to another episode of People Love Clapping, how business groups and communities grow. I am here with my special guest, Marc Mawhinney. Before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit more about this podcast. You can catch it on as a video show on LinkedIn Live just about every Fridays, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're a little late because Marc and I had a wonderful conversation offline, and hopefully some of that can come here on the air and recorded. Also, Facebook. Likewise, YouTube, you can find prior episodes and stream it on just about every one of your favorite podcast streaming services, from Apple Podcast to Google Podcast to Stitcher, which is what I use on my Android phone. And the purpose of People Love Clapping is a couple of fold, as I was telling Marc offline. It's maybe for three reasons. The first and foremost, I like learning from other business group leaders and try to steal their ideas to improve video socials. Video socials is a marketing system for lawyers and accountants, coaches, and consultants, where they come together and record their videos together, fun and done, and then use our automation app called Brander to put their social media on autopilot. But it's really the community of video socials that bring people together and make it effective. And so for me, we do a lot of clapping on video socials, and I know people love clapping, and I want to learn the other secrets to how business groups and communities grow, like with Marc Mawhinney. Marc, I'm looking forward to kind of learning from you, and kind of the other reasons why I do this, as I was telling you offline, is it gives an opportunity for other business group leaders to learn from you, and inevitably we're all able to benefit. And of course, I want to be able to bring you to our audience as well, including Video Socials members. So Marc, before we even go a little deeper into the community that you run, why you run it, how it's grown, why you're growing, and all that stuff, I always ask my guests, from your younger days, was there any kind of community, not necessarily business community, but any other kind of community that made a difference for you? And how did that go? And was that a good impact, a negative impact? What kind of community has helped or hurt, or how was that kind of story driven you?
Well, I'm actually from a small community in a different sense. I grew up in
geography,
a small fishing village in Canada. There was probably 500 people there, and it wasn't exactly a big metropolis, not New York City like you're used to. Starting there, there's the earliest community because everyone knew everyone. It was your typical place where no one locks their doors and everyone waves to everyone. I went back there a few years ago because I haven't lived there since I was late teens. I left for university. I had to get used to putting my hand up on the steering wheel to get ready to wave to people that were passing on the country roads, because I'm used to being in a bigger area where maybe people would flip you off, but they're not waving.
They wave at you one finger at a time.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the earliest community, but then there's micro communities in there because I played Little League baseball, for example. So, hey, there's a community. Sure. I went to church. I actually taught Sunday school, nice. Which is funny. Now you see a portrait back here of the Benjamins, a bunch of, but I guess some people would argue that some books of the Bible that are very pro money and stuff like that. So that's a whole discussion there.
Well, interpretation.
Yeah, exactly. I stopped teaching Sunday school. I one Sunday morning was hungover in university, drove back down, and I thought, this doesn't feel good if I'm hungover from university night, partying the night before, teaching Sunday school the next morning is a little icky. So that's where I bowed out.
There's a lot of community aspect. So and tell me, do you want to focus on the coaching jungle, or is there another aspect of your program as community? Where would you want to talk about the community that you lead now?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple different communities that all kind of blend into each other. My podcast, NaturalBornCoaches, has been running since 2014.
A long-time listener.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's that's 700 and some episodes. There's a community there, but really the Coaching Jungle Facebook group would be what most people would associate with communities with myself, because that's been running since 2015. We've got 20-some thousand members in there, and it's growing, and it's a really good group. So
but you also run kind of a private group. Is it the Secret Coaching Club, or do I get that?
Secret Coach Club's actually it's a hard copy newsletter that I have, but it could be called a community as well. It's a lot of people say, what do you mean a ink and paper newsletter? You can it's not digital. No, we keep it all very old school with it. But I think I always say to coaches, online entrepreneurs, don't get too hung up that it has to be X community. Like, for example, Facebook groups. If your people aren't on Facebook, probably doesn't make sense to have a community on Facebook.
Right,
Maybe,
right.
I have a client who loves Mighty Networks,
Sure.
that's going in there. Troy Broussard, Ben Settle, we were chatting about earlier. They're starting something called Social Lair. I'm going to be experimenting and building a community there too. So I think wherever you can gather people, people get so hung up, they think, oh, I got to be on Facebook or LinkedIn. Like, I can't get into LinkedIn groups. I don't know about you. I tried it for a bit.
LinkedIn can't even get into LinkedIn groups. Yeah, they've iterated a number of times to try to make it sticky and not so salesy, or drive-by posting, as I call it, where it just doesn't have the same interaction as, let's say, Facebook groups, professional groups included, right? Like, and yours is a professional group, so you would almost think of it as a B2B group. Makes more sense on paper, literally, figuratively, for it to be a LinkedIn group. But you said you have over 20,000 members, right? And it's a pretty active Facebook group. I'm a member. I post occasionally, comment occasionally, but people are very, very active in your community. It's not just you posting. It's very much an interaction community. How'd that get started? Like, when did you start that?
Yeah. So to make a really long story short, I used to have a Facebook group for my podcast, and it was called the very original creative name, NaturalBornCoaches Past Guest Group.
Fair enough, yeah.
So every time I had a guest on the podcast, I would invite them into the group, my show used to be daily for the first year. So I had 300 and some episodes really quickly, because there's an episode going out every year. So every day, of the year. So I had 300 and some members inside this group. And what was happening was I was getting all these other coaches requesting to join, because maybe they just saw coaches in the title of the group and they didn't notice past guests. So I'd have to get back to all of them, copy and paste my templated response. Hey, Vic, thanks for requesting to join my group. However, it's only for past guests of my podcast. So all the best. Have a nice life, basically. After that happened enough, I got it through my thick skull that maybe I should have a group for all coaches, since we have so many requests.
And it's funny that you say this, because as I said, this is very much a selfishly motivated podcast for me to learn from leaders like you. And I don't actually have, we have a Facebook group for Video Socials members and friends, which this streams live into, but I don't have a Facebook group for past guests. And so thank you, Marc. I'll be stealing the idea from you. So.
Well, and I ended up killing off when I started the coaching jungle, which was open for all coaches, aspiring coaches, people interested in it. But then I killed off the past guest group with it, so I could focus. I like to focus if I can on one thing and not try to divert, the attention and stuff like that. So the coaching jungle's been running since the fall of 2015. It's been a lot of fun. There's been ups and downs with Facebook, because a darn platform loves to tinker and change things and screw around with algorithms and weird little things like that. But it is what it is. It's I say it's a free platform. Facebook isn't free. There's lots of ways it's not free. But that being said, they I can't complain. I've done very well with the Facebook group, and I'm happy to be doing it. So
you grew so you started in 2015 as a kind of an outgrowth to your podcast, and then was the purpose at that time, because you're very much a kind of like a coach's coach as well, right? So you have coaching programs and group programs and a variety of things as well, but you also work one-on-one. So was the intent always for this to be kind of like an incubator, like a marketing incubator, and nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great strategy. Was that always the intent, or did it just like accidentally evolve into that?
Not many coaches or people online would actually admit this. They'd be horrified that I say it. The intent was to make money by starting the group. There we go again, once again. Yeah, a lot of people say, oh, no, I'm not starting the group for that. I want to, change the world and feed the children and blast. And I'm not trying, I joke around with it, and I'm sounding a little flippant.
Yeah, I want to feed the children. I've got two.
Obviously I want to make connections, and stuff like that. But I've always said if there's no sense building a community, spending all the time, hundreds of hours over the years, building up this community, if you're not getting an ROI from it. And unfortunately, a lot of people running communities, whether they be Facebook groups or whatever, they're just not getting that ROI. So that's the whole, for anything I do, the podcast, Facebook group, my daily emails, I'm doing it, to grow my business,
Sure.
to make a profit. There's a saying that if you can't light up the world if you can't pay your light bill, and unfortunately, a lot of coaches can't pay their light bill. So that's where it is now. A lot of other people made money from that group. I have joint venture partners that I'm often promoting in there. I've had people, they're sometimes sheepish when they admit it to me. They're like, Marc, I got a couple clients last month from your group, and it's almost like they're ashamed of it. And I'm like, hey, look, don't feel bad about it, because you're putting great content out there. You're contributing to the group. You're answering questions. I have no problem with that. The ones I can't stand is when someone comes in and spams the wall. They're in the group, and 2 seconds later.
Yeah, every now and then I see those posts of of people obviously complaining, but where the private DM, PM, private message, direct message, where it's like just kind of basically spam or very little value.
Yeah, so we understand people don't always get to read all the rules. We do treat it like we're kind of like a mini Cuba in a way. Hopefully, people won't protest like in Cuba now. But you have to be a dictator in your group. If you don't have rules that you're enforcing, it's going to become the Wild West. And I'm sure you've been in groups like that before with it, where the moderators take their eye off the ball.
Well, to some extent, you were talking about why LinkedIn groups have never really gained traction and been flourishing. I think it's very much because of that, right? I call it drive-by posting, where everyone just there posting and not interacting and not commenting and not really there for the right reasons, which includes making money, but adding value, knowing that that's going to be an attractive force rather than being the pushy force.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm very clear. Anyone joining the group, it does say in the rules, basically, please read the rules and abide by them. However, so there's no selling, keep it to the theme days, stuff like that, not on the wall. However, I will be promoting my stuff, and if you're not cool with it, you should probably leave. I'm paraphrasing with it. So we have dedicated theme days and stuff.
And you have promotion days, right? You have promotion days, and you have share link days and things of that nature that kind of give someone kind of a little bit of that.
Why the guy wants I always laugh at people who can't just leave the group. I've left Facebook groups before. I've never had the desire to post on the wall with a kind of like Dear John letter, like a breakup letter. It's like, just leave the friggin' group. We don't care. So I've had people post on the wall, like they get all kind of butthurt, like, oh my God, my post was deleted and ruins their day, and this is awful. And Marc, I saw you've been promoting the wall or whatever. It's like, well, hey, you could go start your own group and spend as much time as I have and effort and money on growing the group. There's no harm in that. But you got to abide by those rules. Technically, if I say everyone has to wear a tiara and a tutu and bow down and praise me every day, if they I obviously not doing that, but hey, it's my group. That's probably not the right move for me to do that. And I never same with your group. If I go into your group and you have certain rules, like, hey, that's like your house, I wouldn't go into your house wearing muddy shoes all over and acting like I own the place, because it's your house with it.
So how do you do you have questions? I've been in the group for a while, so I forget. Do you have questions in the beginning, kind of filtering who comes in, that they have to be in the coaching industry or coaching adjacent, so to speak? Or what kind of filter of the kind of people that you want in your Facebook group?
Yeah, I mean, we have questions. That being said, people don't have to be a coach, because it could be someone who's looking at getting into coaching. They're working a 9 to 5 or whatever. Certain people aren't going to make it. If someone doesn't have a profile picture, we're not going to accept it. I told my team not to accept it. If someone's a member of 1,500 Facebook groups, good chance that they're a spammer. My team has a quick look down at their wall before they accept them. So if they have things like weird videos, like, with whatever, animal cruelty crap or pornography or something like that, racist stuff, whatever, they're not going to get into the group. So if there's something like that, but for the most part, we keep it fairly open. It's not like, hey, you have to be a coach for this long or whatever before we let you in with it. We have gotten a little tighter. I mean, there was a time early on where it was, hey, come on in, or whatever. And it's not, that doesn't do your group any good if you get just a bunch of fake people in, or people who are spammers. It's going to hurt it.
Right. It looks good for the numbers, but it's not going to help the interaction, which is also what I wanted to ask you about. So I know you have theme days. Is there any other kind of tips, secrets, or things that you've done along the way to kind of entice that interaction among members? Or
well, I mean, a good example is I often tag people in who could help. So someone asked a question that's, let's say, around the video end of it.
Yeah.
And I would right away say, hey, wait a minute, that's a great question to bring Vikram in on.
Yeah.
I'll tag you in,
Sure.
Hey,
Right.
what do you think? I just did that today. Actually, someone asked around a mindset coach, and I knew one. I tagged them in with it. So I tag people in because I'm not an expert on everything, but I know people who are webinar experts or book writing experts or different things like that, and I can bring them into it. I mean, you have to be consistent with it. I'm posting usually 3 to 4 times a day in the group. When some people would say, oh my God, that's too much. That's how can you do that? Well, one of them's the theme day, which is automated. So that's cheating. One of them is my daily email, which gets posted into the group as well. So that's already written for my email list.
Right.
One way I cheat is, and this is a tip for anyone, if it's Facebook groups, if you go to facebook.com/onthisday, that'll take you to Facebook memories. You can see what you posted on this day 1 year ago, this day 2 years ago, this day 3 years ago, or whatever. So if my brain's not firing on all cylinders, I'll go in, I'll check. I'll post something that maybe I posted back in 2014 or 2016. I've never had anyone say, wait a minute, Marc, you posted that on July 20 or whatever. In 2015, you bastard. Like, how dare you? People don't remember. Polls are great.
I don't think they were even a couple of weeks ago, let alone a year or 2 years ago. So I'm a big fan of reposting. So
this a perfect example of this. I spoke at an event in San Diego a few years back, and Guy Kawasaki was speaking at the same event. So I stopped in to watch his presentation. He told a story where, as an experiment on his Facebook fan page, he decided to post the exact same post a few hours apart, word for word. He wasn't going to change anything. He was curious to see how many people would complain and stuff. He had at the time, I believe, about 500,000 Facebook fans. Do you know how many complaints he got out of 500,000?
How many?
I believe it was 2. 2 people. Hey, you posted this a few hours ago. So if Guy Kawasaki with 500,000 fans at the time is getting 2 complaints, me or whatever, we're okay. We're not gonna, Or the funny thing is, if someone is fairly new, they've got maybe 500 or 1,000 Facebook friends. Don't worry about it. You're probably not going to get any complaints. Or you could argue that, hey, this is an important point, and it deserves some repetition to let it sink.
Number one, exactly. You could easily defend it. Let alone the fact that if someone is paying that much attention to you, either he's a stalker in a negative way, or he's a wonderful raving fan in a positive way. Either way, he's raving. So it's rare, unfortunately, to have that many raving fans that's going to be watching you so closely that they don't have their own busy schedule, that you're wondering, why did you repost this from even a month ago, let alone 10 years ago?
Well, I heard a story a few years back, and this is what keeps me up at night. It's why I show up every day for social media, emails, and everything else. There was a coach who told me she had a banner year, or she had a record for revenue. She just knocked it out of the park, had an amazing year. So she decided to reward herself for the first 3 months of the following year, New Year's, January, February, March. She booked an Airbnb somewhere warm and sunny. She said, I'm going to take a couple months off, recharge. I deserve it. Then I'll come back, pick up where I left off.
Okay.
Now, when she came back in April, it was just a few months or whatever of her being off the radar. She almost had to start her business from scratch. Now, that might be an exaggeration. She still had a few things going on, but she was shocked at how much people moved on and forgot about her.
Right.
And now I would argue, I'm not saying don't go away, because obviously that's a good thing to recharge your battery. And, when everything's over here with COVID and people can travel, great, do it. But there's things you can do with scheduling, with team members, stuff like that. Right. Don't just say, okay, I'm going to completely go off the radar, and for 90 days no one will hear anything about me. I'll go hike at the top of a mountain and meditate and stuff and forget about it. That's not good. So I always remember that story, and that's why I show up every day. Now, I probably go too far to the extreme. I remember interviewing a guest on my podcast back in 2015. I was sick with the flu, like really, I won't get into details, violently ill that day, and I probably should have canceled it, but it took months to get this all worked out, and I really want to get him on the show. So I did the interview with a garbage can next to my feet. And I was like, I hope the guy don't have to mute it.
There's a mute button, right?
Now I'm happy to report that I was fine. Nothing happened there, but that's how paranoid I am. I make sure that I get stuff done. Now, what would most people do in that situation is, I'll take the next week or two off and just recharge. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
It's consistency and focus, right? So from that aspect, their truisms.
I'm not sick today, by the way, so don't worry. I'm not going to be, bending into
We're socially distanced, so I'm not terribly worried.
Well, nowadays, this was back pre-COVID, so I didn't even mention it to him. I'm sure he probably would say, "Yeah, no problem, Marc." But this was a pretty big name coach, and it took a while to get him on the show. So
that's fair. So we talked about interaction, which is really, really important for a community. I'm always kind of interested in seeing, all right, how are our video socials members interacting? Obviously in the club, but even outside of the club. So that's very interesting. There's also a concept of things that are ritualistic and repeated and things that other people repeat and other people do. You have these theme days again that are sort of the repeatables. Are there any other like phrases and sayings and things that either you've tapped into or architected in the group that a lot of the members end up doing or saying? Is there any kind of ritualistic, repeatable things? It may not be, but I figured I'd ask because I tend to see that from group to group. Is there anything like that?
Well, I mean, I have some phrases that I coined. I'm not sure that they're the best in the world, but, the people hear me, for example, I often say, and I didn't coin this one, I have to say freeple and cheaple. That's who you should be repelling. People want all the free stuff or they're cheap. Yeah. Not sheeple. You hear sheeple a lot nowadays.
Yeah.
Online. Freeple and cheaple. I'm often saying you can't coach on an empty stomach. That one I did coin because it's true. If you're not bringing in money, you're worried about paying the bills and you got bill collectors calling, stuff like that, you're not going to be on your A game when you're coaching. But I think overall the theme of the coaching jungle, if you look at the broad theme, is that, hey, this group is to help you grow your coaching business and to make more money and to feel good about it. Because it's one of the frustrating things in the coaching world. I've seen this since I got started in 2014. Coaches have such messed up opinions around money that they're almost afraid to admit that they want to make it. So you've heard this before too, like, oh, put your wallet away, nothing for sale, I promise. And there's a lot of them, which I call Mother Teresa coaches. They think you have to be coaching barefoot in some distant village. Right. And if you dare charge anything. So years ago, I hosted a summit where I invited a bunch of people on, and the theme over those 3 weeks was it was a command higher coaching fees summit. And so it was all around bump up your coaching fees. Most people were positive about it, but I had some people when I was promoting it was like, that's awful. Coaching isn't just about money and, how dare you, do this. And they were trying to make me sound like I was a cross between Gordon Gekko and J.R. Ewing and stuff like that. And I'm like, come on, I was surprised how riled up they got. The chances are, I mean, haven't seen their tax returns or anything, but I'm guessing those coaches aren't making a lot of money. Right. Yeah. And so that's what I try to do with the coaching jungle is, hey, we're talking about growing businesses here and we're going to feel good about it. Don't feel ashamed. You're in business. You're not that's a
repeated theme, which sounds like it needs to be repeated. So,
in the coaching world, it does. Yeah. So you would think, if anything, coaches would be all good around money.
Especially around business coaches, right? I mean, let alone, there are other types of coaches, but especially if they're a business or executive or any type of career-oriented coach.
Well, this picture back here, I've made a couple jokes here so far today, but a lot of coaches would not put this back here because they're pretending that they don't like money, And so I've had some of them are like, oh, gee, Marc, you sure you want to put that there or whatever? I mean, yeah, I do. I like money. I like what it pays for. And my favorite character, my son watches SpongeBob SquarePants. I love Mr. Krabs, the restaurant owner. He's so, he's always about the money. That's what coaches have to be like. You can't stay in business if you're not making money.
Well, I mean, I'm not as culturally astute, but it looks very much like greenbacks and U.S. dollars behind you.
Yeah, I don't like our money in Canada. Well, first off, it's not worth as much, but they try to get too fancy with the colors and everything. We got purples and stuff. Here, let me see. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little prettier than
this is our instead of our friggin' $2 bill or $1 bill. We've got. I don't have a. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. This is our loonie, our $1. So we don't have an actual $1 bill anymore. They retired the $2 bill, so this is a toonie. We got loonies and toonies for friggin' this isn't money. Like American, you imagine a rap video or something where you're throwing around
the coins,
and toonies. It's all about the loonies and toonies. So I like the look of your money much better, and I like the conversion.
And you like the conversion rate as well.
I do.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I like the look of our money. I want to see more of it. So
Yeah, exactly. Now that being said, I've talked a lot about money and stuff. The ones I make fun of are, I call them the douchepreneurs, where you see the ones that'll spread out the,
the
$100
Lambos
bills.
and
Yeah, on their
wing,
beds,
wing doors, whatever.
Yeah, so it can go too far. There's some of them that are, a little, you can just tell they're just cheesy and you feel like taking a shower after you consume some of their stuff or whatever. They're full of it. So you have to have something to back it up. I had Bob Berg on my show years ago, and Bob wrote some great books like The Go-Giver and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
And he had a saying, which, I never forgot. He said during the interview, he said, money is an echo of value. So if you're providing value out into the marketplace, it's going to be reflected back in your bank account in there. But you got to provide value. You got to give something. There's no such thing as something for nothing. So you have to have both of those, the sizzle and the steak, so to speak.
That's a good way of putting it. You've grown tremendously, the group. How did that happen? Like, was it coaches inviting other coaches? Were you doing a major outreach campaign? Like, how was that focus done in terms of invitations and having coaches invite others? Can you shed a little light on that? Like, how did it grow? Was it just accidental?
A lot of it was a lot of it was organic. There wasn't, a big marketing budget or anything like that. So we did have a nice head start because I had my name out there, had the podcast, stuff like that. So the first 500 to 1,000 members, we grew pretty quickly, but then it just sort of snowballed from there. Facebook would be recommending the group to others. People would find it. They would stumble in. So sometimes we'll get, you can tell invited by Joe Smith or whatever when people request to join. I have had members in one swoop invite like 30 people to join, which we always appreciate. We'll do contests. We're doing a contest at the moment this month for people who invite, where we're giving prizes, stuff like that. So you can definitely supercharge it. But I think a lot of it is just organic, every day, just growing it. Not being too concerned. Like, some people get too worked up, like watching it, like, oh my God, our growth slowed. And, they're the same with podcasts. I don't get these people that refresh their download page a couple times a day. I don't even look at very rarely look at my download page for a podcast. So some people take it a little too far. So I'm all about just put out the best possible product or community, and you do a good job with that, people will find it.
So I must have missed this latest kind of growth blitz. I don't know what you call it, because I missed it. So I don't even know what you work on. Can you shed a little bit more light? So, and how often do you do these kind of invitation contests? So you're doing one right now. So can you give a little bit of insight into, like,
probably don't
what should people do, and what do they win, and how do you measure that?
Yeah, so what we're doing, this is July, obviously. So we're doing for the month of July, we're tracking whoever invites people in. My team is tracking how many invites people do. And then we have prizes for it. The first prize, I believe we have a year subscription to my print newsletter, a few of my other programs. Second prize is 2 of the programs. Third is 1 of the programs. And each of those have real world value, a couple $1,000s all the way down to 500 for the one with the one group. So it's not like, some people pull values out of their butts. They say, hey,
$20,000 value.
They work on something like a little piece of paper like this, like, this is worth $20,000 or whatever. Have you actually sold it for that?
Right.
So those values I put in, those are programs and subscriptions I actually sell, where people pay me that.
Right. People have paid.
But that being said, you don't even have to do like anything really big. So we've done in the group before giveaways for Amazon gift cards, and they've been like $25 Amazon gift cards, which aren't anything crazy. You wouldn't believe how appreciative people are that win one of those, because they're not used to getting something from Facebook group. My group are so many readers in there. I mean, I love reading. They like, coaches are addicted to reading, most of them. And you'd swear like, something this huge. Oh my God, Marc, thanks so much. But so it could be something like Amazon gift cards, Starbucks gift cards. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. If I had a small group starting over in a small budget, maybe I would do it where I was giving away, I don't know, probably $100 or $200 worth of those type gift cards. You could get some traction from that.
How often do you run these contests?
Probably once a year. Like I said, I should do it more often, probably with it. But about once a year we do it.
That's cool. And then what's your timetable? Like, how do you see the growth of the group? Do you keep metrics in that sense, where you have this contest? Where are there internal goals that you keep? in terms of how you want the group to grow, or how does that work for you?
I mean, I check the growth numbers and stuff, but you have to be careful getting too. We talked about with podcast downloads into the weeds too much with that, or you drive yourself crazy. Facebook could do some wonky things. So they just recently did a change with Facebook groups where I talked to a lot of group owners, and some like I mentioned, wonky things were happening in groups where group owners couldn't post in their group, or members just were wiped out, missing, and stuff like that. Our group was removed for a while from search for some people. I noticed it because we had a couple days of no new members, and I was like, geez, that's weird. Now I couldn't even see one day with no requests, but a couple days, that's odd. Yeah, right. And then I was talking to a few people who were in the know with stuff like, there's some few things happening. Now it's gone back on track, but if I was too worked up about that, I would be getting ready to jump off a bridge, or something like that. It's Facebook at the end of the day,
Sure.
I still think, and this is what I would recommend, is don't put all your eggs in one basket. So in a perfect world, I'm really big on email list.
Likewise.
You own email list, right? So Mark Zuckerberg can't take that away from you. It's not building something on rented land. So in a perfect world, someone would be on my email list. They're in the Facebook group. They subscribe to the podcast. They follow me all over on social media. So if they miss something somewhere, they're going to see it somewhere else. But don't put all your eggs in one basket, because who knows, not that Facebook's going to go the way of MySpace, but a lot of people thought MySpace would be around forever, and look what happened there.
Right. So. And more people check more email more times a day, even more than social media, which is kind of one of my repeatable sayings. So,
it's less noisy too, right? Especially over I know it's a big change since 2016 with that election you guys had, which everyone's riled up over. But then with COVID and stuff and all the debates and everything else now,
people are checking out,
Yeah, it's tough to cut through the noise when you look at it with it, or it's so that's where I like email. You've got people's, I say, undivided attention. I don't know in 2021 if people ever have undivided attention, but
it's a direct attention. Directly in their inbox.
Yeah, so I actually make efforts. I've been getting better at it. I need to keep getting better, but pulling back from social media usage. I'm not on it all day. You and I chatted about it. It'd be easy.
Right.
I like politics. I like a good debate, a good argument. I could be sitting on there all day fighting with strangers halfway across the world. Is that going to help my business? Probably not. So I have certain check-ins that I do. I get in, I get the heck out. I could get sucked into it. I do drive-by postings a lot, where I'll post what I have to post, and then bang, I'm out of there. I'm not sticking around.
So to wrap up, as we're getting near the end, I always like to hear other things that are timely and timetable oriented. Do you have events? Do you bring members together? Obviously, your podcast ends up being an event. I know a lot of your JV partners put on events and seminars. Is there any kind of regularity that you try to bring members together in terms of kind of events, or any kind of timetable you do for your group?
Do you mean like virtual events?
Virtual or in person. I think a lot of it probably is more virtual, not only from a COVID perspective, but just you have an international group, right?
Yeah.
So it probably spans, I know, Canada and US at the very least, but probably globally.
Yeah. So in all honesty, not so much with the group. It's not a bad idea. I'm always careful loading stuff onto my plate. I hate saying, okay, now every Friday at 1:00 I'm going to be here, because so we haven't. I've looked at it. I mean, with Secret Coach Club, the print newsletter, we're starting live calls now every month, so people can hop on the live call, get clarification on anything that they wrote in the newsletter. That's a very tight knit type thing. It's not a 20-some thousand member Facebook group. So no, I haven't. Here's the other challenge too. You want to give enough value. You want to obviously help people with it, but you also don't want to give so much for free and then that you're not being paid. You're trying to define where the free paid line is. And I find coaches are horrible. They're too far the other way with, okay, we'll just do everything for free and then hopefully they'll pay me. Now you can go the other way where you don't give anything and you just keep it all tight knit. And I try to find that balance in between there with the free and paid line.
Yeah. So you kind of allow the members to have their events, or your JV partners to have the events, and that becomes kind of a driving force where people are able to monetize.
Well, my JV partners, I mean, that could be a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
I do a flat fee model. You and I have chatted about it.
Yeah.
So the way that I do it with a partner is we do either a 7-day or 3-day promo. Usually it's 7 days where they pay me a flat fee. It has to be someone that I like, someone that has good stuff. Obviously, my name's attached to it, someone that I'm endorsing. But then that's what you're referring to, where they can come in, they can post on the group wall. We just did a webinar yesterday with Ron Reich. He has a great program around group coaching programs. So that's a way to monetize your Facebook group. With it is that you've got this community, you got eyeballs there and stuff. If there's someone that has offers something that complements what you do, but isn't exactly what you do, then there's an opportunity to get revenue that way as well. So I've been doing those flat fee JVs now since 2018 that way, and they work really well.
That's cool, which is another way that you monetize your group. So I'm happy that you were able to bring that up. That's cool. Yeah. This is great. I always like to wrap up very similar to kind of hearing your background and your story. And this was tremendous. You've given me at least 3 ideas that I can think of already. And when I go back and listen to it, I'm sure I'll get even more. So I'm sure other listeners will get more in addition to the viewers. And you brought up social layer, and you brought up them offline as well. So I'm looking forward to that intro. I always like to also end, is there any other business group and a business group leader that maybe you are a member of or not necessarily a member of that you want to shine on as opposed to throw shade on, and kind of that you're a raving fan of, and why are you a raving fan of that business group leader?
Oh boy, there's so many of them I've learned from. Okay. Well, you mentioned social layer. Ben Settle's been a big part of my growth. He got me into daily emails. He's been on my podcast now 3 or 4 times. Ben and Troy Broussard started social layer. They basically looked at things that they didn't like from Facebook and the big players and said, we're going to do the exact opposite here. So I'm going to be experimenting, doing some stuff with their group. So Ben has a print newsletter around email marketing that I learned a lot from. And even though it's not a traditional community there, I've gotten a lot of help from Ben because he lets people email him, pick his brain, stuff like that. So that's called Email Players. I'll get a shout out for Ben for what he's done there, because I've been a subscriber since spring of 2016. Still going. Yeah,
that's awesome. Thank you. Hopefully we can chat offline about that. This is fun. Anything else you want to mention that we didn't bring up? I know we talked about the group, we talked about your coaching programs, your JV programs. Anything else that I didn't mention that you would want to promote and highlight?
Oh, boys. Well, I mean, if anyone wants to check out my group, I should mention the Coaching Jungles at thecoachingjungle.com. You can pop in. Lots of great people in there. We love to have good people contributing, people who can share stuff, their expertise, help others. So thecoachingjungle.com.
That's cool. And I'm a member. It's a great interactive group, a lot of value. I mean, everyone's really there. Maybe not everyone's there for the great reason I'm giving value, but 99%, it's really tremendous. And the policing is there too. So it's a wonderful group to be part of. So kudos to you. So thank you, Marc, for being part of People Love Clapping.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Great. This is another episode of People Love Clapping. Again, as I said at the start of the show, you can go to YouTube and see prior episodes. Of course, catch episodes just about every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern on my LinkedIn as LinkedIn Live, likewise Facebook, and on all of your favorite podcast platforms from Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher. Thank you so much for your comments and downloads. Looking forward to the next episode of People Love Clapping, how business groups and communities grow.